So we just get stuck straight in. We don't do any introduction until afterwards or anything. So quick fire questions. You've not seen these because I wouldn't have seen them before. So first question. Favourite place in Liverpool to relax?
Favourite place to relax? Can I say at home?
You can say your own, yeah. I feel like it's going to be the same every time. Your favourite brand to come out of Liverpool in the past 5 or 10 years that isn't your own?
That isn't my own.
So a born and bred Liverpool brand.
It's going to have to be Monterex, isn't it? They've absolutely smashed it.
Absolutely smashed it, yeah.
You just look at them, two young lads from sports backgrounds, and they've just grown a massive business, and they're clearly very smart businessmen as well.
Yeah. It's a hard business to grow that as well, isn't it? A lot of competition. Third question, what's one thing that you wish people knew about you that they probably don't?
I want to say nothing. I think I'm quite a private person. I tend not to share much about myself or my life, so I'd probably say I wouldn't share anything.
Maybe we change that today on this podcast. Last one, proudest achievement in business so far?
I think selling one of my businesses for quite a large sum was quite a financial achievement. That was changed my life. But I'd probably just say working in the education sector for almost 20 years now, and I've probably helped educate thousands and thousands of students from level 2 qualifications up to full degrees. So just probably the ongoing journey, I suppose.
That's what I want to get into, because like we said before, just before this, like if you look back at Liverpool Business College from the start, it's less than a year. So I'm like, who is this person? That's the most interesting part. So one of the biggest things that we try and get out of this podcast is, I said this to you on the phone the other day, I feel like a lot of content that we consume, especially in podcasts, is all looking back, and like I said, you can sort of you're not sort of falsifying everything as such, but you can package things up in a way that are easy to consume or might glorify some things. And I feel like that is a lot of podcasts these days. So even though we will look back on what you got you to this point, I also want to talk about you so early on in this business that you're in now, in a crazy space that I want to talk about as well. And what are the challenges that you get into now, and how are you dealing with them now? Instead of looking back and going, I dealt with this problem this way, Laura, and it sounds really good. So that's what I really want to come into. And like, for example, like selling a business, I didn't see any of that online. So that's what I want to get stuck into. So we've got one question that I just want to start with. That was the quick fire. We just got one main question, which the podcast is essentially all about. What does the word brand mean to you?
I suppose it means it's the front facing part of the business, isn't it? It's how you want to portray yourself. It's how you want to be seen. I think growing up, I was always quite obsessed with brands. So you've got like the Apples and stuff like that, and it's all so carefully manufactured, isn't it? Like, it's not by mistake. Everything they do is by design, right down to, I suppose, the colour themes that they use and the messages they want to use. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the McDonald's adverts recently. They don't even put McDonald's anywhere on it, but you know it's McDonald's just by the music, and you can tell who it is. So I think it's that recognition of who you are and what you're trying to do. Yeah,
brilliant. I think you touched on something there that I like to always get in there. So the difficult thing that I was thinking about when we were starting this podcast is I like talking about branding. Like, similar to what you just said, I've always been obsessed with branding and what attracts me to that thing in particular that might not attract you, and so on. But then, obviously, in the world we live in now, you've also got personal branding. So there's almost two sides to it. And I think it's like a back and forth that business owners get caught in a lot. Like, which one should I do first? Do I need to do personal branding? If you're a private guy, like you said, like, I think I probably started out in business quite private, and then realised that actually I might need to be a bit more forthcoming with, obviously you can choose what you share and stuff, but be a bit forthcoming with my face to show that who's leading the business and things like that. So there's always that to and fro between what we've called like a logo brand or an aesthetic brand and a personal brand. And it'd be interesting to see what your experience has been putting yourself out there with your podcast and stuff like that as well. I'm going to move on.
Yeah, it's been an experience. A few people have messaged me or have met up with them when I've tried to get them the podcast, and they've gone like, who are you? Where have you come from? And like, you seem to have popped up out of nowhere, which I haven't. I've been working in business for myself since I was 19, and I'm 38 now, but because I didn't like push it and I didn't want to talk about how I walked up a flight of stairs today, aren't I brilliant? I don't feel the need to champion everything I do. I think I go quietly about my business. I work quite hard, and I've never really thought about personal brand. And I guess in education, when I have parents and students come to me for open evenings, I suppose I am selling myself personally. And especially with the business college, I'm putting myself front and centre and saying, you know, trust your 16-year-olds with me. I'm going to give them the best education in the city. So from that point of view, I suppose there is a personal brand, but I'm not sitting at home thinking, oh, what can I post today that's really going to show people who I am? It's not.
Well, I think that's an important point, because I think when a lot of business owners or like young entrepreneurs now in the space, I mean, anyone can call themselves an entrepreneur these days, really, can't they? But when they start thinking about personal brand, it almost comes across over-engineered sometimes, which actually doesn't build the trust that it's supposed to in the first place. So it's probably a nice natural approach to it. What I want to do from now till the end of the podcast, we're going to aim for about 60 minutes. I want to sort of create this timeline. So I've shown you the segments before. I want to start in like early life and introduction first. And the whole reason why I've not introduced you, because I want you to introduce yourself. We want to go through early life, and then we want to eventually get to basically where we are now and what you're looking at in the future. So to get started, who are you? Where are you from? You said you've been a bit of a ghost, but you've actually been in business since you're 19. So who are you? What makes you tick, and what was your life like growing up?
From Norris Green. Born and bred in Norris Green, grew up there, loved it as a child, just thought it was just a normal childhood. I suppose you've got nothing to compare it to when you're younger.
Yeah.
As you grow up, you look around and you probably think, maybe we are quite poor, maybe we don't have the best of everything, but I don't think it affected me in any way. Other than I probably did have a motivation to want to be successful. I wanted to be my own business owner. That was from 13, 14, 15, I was starting to think of that. I listen to podcasts myself now, and you hear people say like, oh, the founder of Dell, Michael Dell, he was like taking PCs apart when he was like 10. I didn't do anything like that. I don't think I've got anything that was like, oh, I'm going to do this when I'm older, I'm destined for it. I just knew I wanted to be in business. I like the idea of it. I like the idea of making my own decisions.
And the independence.
Yeah. I don't think I was a problem student, but I questioned everything. Right up till I went to university, and we'd be in lectures and they'd be putting quotes up that are like 40 years old, and I was like, is it relevant? Like, should we be updating them? And I don't think I was the most ideal student, and I often tell people I'm probably the most unemployable person I know. I think I'd be a nightmare for anyone else, but I think working for myself, I do a pretty good job. So yeah, grew up in Norris Green, did okay in school, was one of those typical boys who could have got good grades but didn't revise. I think girls are normally quite more mature at that age, aren't they? So just sort of winged it, did okay, got told to stay on at sixth form, which was probably some quite bad careers advice, and that's something I've took forward into my job now, is to give everyone the best advice. Yeah. So when we have students come into the business college, we actively tell them they can't sign up till they've gone and looked at 2 or 3 more colleges, because we want them to make the best decision for them. What I don't want to do is persuade a student to sign up and then they realise it's the wrong decision and they leave in October. That's a nightmare for everyone.
So it's more like the reasons of why you're going to persuade them.
Yeah.
Knowing that the values are in place and everything like that.
Exactly. So we say, this is our offer, but go and look at Hugh Bird College, go and look at City Liverpool College. If you feel theirs is a better offer, perfect, good luck to you. We only want 50 students per year, so we're not under a massive pressure to recruit. We don't have a huge, £10 million building we have to service every year. It's a small environment. Yeah. We keep our overheads low and we focus on the student experience. So I think the plan was sixth form, joined in September, got told to leave by December because I just wasn't engaged, wasn't enjoying what I was doing. And then actually found a football coaching course, went and studied there, got the bug for it, would have coached for free. I still coach for free sometimes now if I have to coach my son's team or someone just wants a bit of help. So I was lucky that I found my passion really early. And then I think my career just blossomed from there, really.
And that's where, around about the age of like the business mindset would have started, is it? So if you, at what age are you at then, roughly?
So I would have went to college when I was 17. But I'd already done a few little things before that. So my first little business venture was probably illegal.
Clip this. Remember this is for a clip. Go on, tell us.
Yeah, so it was not the most legitimate business venture. So we found a box set that we liked when we were 15 at the time. It's called the OC. I don't know if you remember it. Proper like cheesy stuff. And we basically bought a duplicator or a copier, and we copied all the CDs. We made all the packaging and everything, and they were amazing copies, but they were copies. And we were selling them on eBay as the OC box set.
Right.
We didn't say it was fake, but we didn't say it wasn't fake. And yeah, we probably sold quite a lot of them.
That's the entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, and we started off with just like a tower where you could copy one. After we'd sold a couple, we were like, oh, there's this tower where you can copy 6 at once. Then we were making 6 box sets at once. And probably about 6 months down the line, once the reviews started coming in of, you've sold me something fake, we quickly realised, oh, you can't build a business on sand, which that ultimately was. So yeah, we got shut down.
Quick business lesson immediately.
Yeah, exactly. And that was probably the first business venture. The second one was we went to a shop to buy some clothes. It was in an industrial estate, and he sold all designer clothes. And me and my friend went in, and we just got chatting to him when we were like 16, 17. And he said, oh, lads, do you have mates? Do you have friends who like these type of clothes? And he basically said we could sell it for him. So my mate had just passed his test. And we used to drive up to like the Jacobs factory on the lunch break, and they'd all come out, and we'd have these T-shirts, these Y3 trainees, and we were just selling stuff out of the booth. So they were probably my 2 earliest business experiences. I wouldn't say they were planned. I wouldn't say we were thinking about it. It was just probably that hustle mentality from Norris Green. You see the kids, well, you probably don't see them anymore, but back in the day, you'd have all the kids with the guy forks and asking for a quid off people walking by. Probably just that type of mentality, really.
Yeah. That like you said, is that hustle, isn't it? Hustle is like a weird word now, isn't it? Because people don't like using it sometimes because it's been used to like the hustle porn type thing. It's like, oh, you need to be working these many hours a day, and that, so people have stopped using it. But the word hustle just epitomizes like exactly what it takes to start a business and to be an entrepreneur, but actually figure out how things work and fail and then learn again and then fail and then be successful, which is obviously what you've done in the end. Obviously, we'll get on to your main business that we can talk about, but that's really interesting. I feel like what you said there about your upbringing as well, I feel like it's a real trend in anyone that's from Liverpool. I'm not from Liverpool myself, I'm not far away, but I'm not from Liverpool myself, but there's this trend of just humble beginnings when you speak to somebody that's from Liverpool that's in business, because you've, like I said on the episode the other week, like when there's a certain perspective that you can get when you see both sides of the coin, when you've had something and haven't had something, then when you get it, it sort of gives you that different perspective because you know what it's like not to have it.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that you have to say that you were the poorest and all this stuff, but Liverpool is just a place that seems to foster that like humbleness to begin with. And then as you go, you sort of keep that thread of being humble, but then you become successful. And that's a perfect combination for business, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we were the poorest in Liverpool. We grew up in Norris Green, council estate, single mum, 3 kids. We'd go to my dad's on the weekend. If he won a bet, we'd go out for a meal. If he didn't, we wouldn't. And yeah, I've got nothing to compare it to, but it was, I think growing up, I always had that, I want more than this. And then when I started doing well, I've probably been driven by that fear of, I don't want to go back to not having the things I like and the things I enjoy. So it's probably a little bit of a fear-driven exercise now where I have to keep pushing, keep going, because if you're standing still, you're probably going backwards, aren't you?
And when you've done it for the majority of your life as well, it's kind of all you know, isn't it? Like standing still, it's like when you sort of going 70 miles an hour and you have to slow down really all of a sudden to come off a motorway, it feels like you're going too slow.
Yeah.
So then when you're used to being at this pace your whole life and then you slow down, you actually feel like you're going slower than everyone else because you're used to being at a certain pace. It's quite difficult.
Yeah, and I think there's obviously people far more successful than me, and you see these like billionaires or multi-millionaires, and when they retire, like 6 months later, they kick it because they've been so used to that.
Yeah.
That running 100 miles an hour, they can't live.
Yeah.
Not doing that.
It's all you know.
Yeah.
So we're at, let's say we're at like sort of 16, 17. Where do we go from there? So obviously you just said like that was your first taste of sort of business, and you were obviously like hustling, like we said, and a bit of a Del Boy out the back of the car selling this and that. So obviously you learn quickly in probably communication and sales and stuff like that. But where do we go from there then on a business perspective?
Yeah, so I went to college, studied sport, and it's one of the first sports providers of the kind in the country. It was called David Campbell Soccer. Worked for him, and he was probably my first mentor. He was a successful multi-millionaire businessman. He'd been a professional footballer. He had the gift of the gab, and he knew how to inspire people and how to motivate people. So I went for the interview, and he had a big trial. You had to get up, you had to coach for 10 minutes in front of everyone. And he pulled me out at the end and was like, "You've got a place." And it was like, wow, I've actually earned a place somewhere, and I never felt anything like that. It was just you go to school. I got told to stay at sixth form. I hadn't achieved anything. So for him to single me out and say, you've got a place, I mean, he probably said it to all 50 students that day. But at that time, I didn't know that, and it felt absolutely amazing. And I remember a few months later, he rang home, and my mum called me down when everyone had house phones. And he was like, James, I'm just ringing to let you know we're still thinking about you. You did a brilliant job at the trial. We can't wait for you to join. And again, it was like, he's taken the time to ring me. And then I couldn't wait to join then.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we've tried to build into the business college, is that we want to know our students, we want to have a relationship with them, and we want to make sure they feel supported by us. So yeah, that was probably my first experience of a mentor. Started coaching on his course, and he was sending us out into primary schools. So I was learning to coach. My second year of the course, I basically didn't attend college. He was paying me to coach full time in the schools.
Right.
So my college experience was work, essentially. And I think I was 18, turning 19, and I was on £250 a week. I was coach in the morning, coach at lunchtime, and then coach after school. I just absolutely loved it.
So that education, because this is kind of what I'm trying to piece together in my mind. So I'm looking at, not to spoil what you're doing now, but obviously you look at Liverpool Business College now, and you look at that and you go, nobody creates colleges. Colleges are just there. And from my perspective, obviously, from the outside, just like the colleges are there and you know who the colleges are. So you think, when do new colleges start? So then I'm like, how do you even do that? What's happened for you to do that? But it seems like education's been there from the start.
Yeah. So again, I was coaching. You would call it education, but it was primary. So I was going into the schools. You'd go to an after-school club and you go, we're doing a football session for 1 hour. It's £3.50. 20 sign up. You've got £70, and I'd probably get 15. The other coach would get 15, and he was getting the rest. Got a full-time job at the end of my second year of college with him, and I was already quite a good salesman at 18, 19. So I think I signed up like 10 new schools for him, which was worth quite a lot of money. And I used to look at the register and go, well, I've got 500 kids across the week, times that by £3.50. I'm making them nearly £2,000 or whatever it was. And I think I was still on like 250.
Yeah.
I was going, and then he sat us all down. One day there was me and all the new staff coming on board. And he said, if you don't all get me 5 schools, I'm going to let you go. And I pulled him and said, you don't mean me. I've already brought you 10. He was like, no, I do mean you. And it just left like a bit of a sour taste. Like, there's no like recognition. He just wants me to keep going. He's treating me the same as the others. And
quite transactional.
It was very transactional, and I was probably too young to deal with it in the correct way. So my way of dealing with it was probably the Norris Green way of going, well, I don't know if I can swear, well, fuck you.
Seeing a bit.
Seeing it, I'll do it for myself then.
Yeah.
So I left. And yeah, set up my own first coaching academy called Technique Soccer. Grew that quite rapidly. That was probably my first real business. We had about 10 staff, some full-time, some part-time. I think I was 20 and all the staff were like 17 to 20. So it was like a ridiculously young team.
Yeah. Bet there's some drive though, some work ethic.
Everyone was really motivated. Yeah. We had a great social life away from it. But again, it was probably a business built on sand because I had no idea about cash flow. I had no idea about how to forecast. And I just assumed if I took all this money in at the start of the 10-week course, I didn't have to think I need to spread this out over 10 weeks.
It's just working.
I was like, okay, we've got this money. I can get a new BMW. My business partner wanted a new van. Great. Let's get a new like vinyl or some new shirts for the office. And within about 3 years, once we'd had to become VAT registered, and the VAT man knocked, we were like, oh, we can't afford to pay our bills. So again, that was my real first business experience. Unbelievable. Couldn't have enjoyed it anymore, but ultimately it failed due to lack of management of the expenses, I suppose. I
think cash flow generally in business is the Achilles heel, isn't it? It's the thing that can manage well is what fuels the growth, obviously, and gives you that freedom as a business owner. I think if I ever hear about somebody that is running a business and doesn't have the freedom that they want at that time, generally you can probably work your way back to cash flow because there's probably some fear there or something that they can't take a step back from because they need to always be bringing in. But cash flow is always the hardest part, isn't it? Yeah,
I learned that the hard way. But we probably had about 50 schools at the time, and this member of staff took 6, someone else took 7, I took some. So this business sort of got divided up, and out of that came my second business, which horrendous name was JQ Sports. Like just my initials, like proper branding. But it didn't really matter because I had a good reputation in the city for being a good coach and for being able to deliver good products for schools. When I first started, we were just doing like after school clubs, half-term camps, and then I quickly realised you could do PPA cover. So teachers in schools, they have to have time off to plan, prepare, assess and mark and things like that. So we'd go in and say, we can do, £150 an hour, and we'll be able to deliver that PE stuff for your teachers who aren't trained to do it. So that business grew even bigger, and I had a good handle on expenses at that point.
You understood all the lessons that you'd learned from.
Exactly. And then we eventually rebranded that to UK School Sport, which was a little bit better of a name than JQ Sport.
Yeah.
And again, it was huge.
The business had grown up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But I still had no idea about business. I'm not going to sit here and go, I knew everything. I would have definitely made more mistakes than good decisions, I think. But because I loved it and I was quite good at it, I got away with it for an extended period of time, I'd say.
What would be, obviously you mentioned about like tax and cash flow and forecasting and stuff, but are there any other lessons that you can pinpoint that made JQ Sports and then UK grow just as quickly as the other one, or anything that give you a better stability that you'd learned from the other business other than like the cash flow? Is there anything else that stands out?
Always staff. Like literally the key to any business, I think, is getting the best possible staff. And if you know you've made a bad hire, I think you've got to correct it as soon as possible. As ruthless as that might sound, I think if you keep a bad member of staff, you're not doing them a service and you're not doing the business a service. So I have made some quite harsh decisions in the past, but you need people who buy into the vision. And I'd say the staff I had then were really bought into the vision. And I did quite a lot of training. So I'd say, we're going to come in the morning and I'm going to show you how to ring schools and ask if you can have a meeting. Because traditionally teachers are teaching all day. Yeah. So we'd ring schools from 8 till 9, try and get through to them. Normally you wouldn't. Then you say, okay, I'll try 12 till 1 and I'll try after school. Yeah. And I made a big deal about, Jamie, who used to work for us, he's got 3 school meetings booked in today. Like, what have you done? And I made it a little bit dog-eat-dog. Rather than that, like, participation, everyone gets a medal. I'm not really a big fan of that. Yeah. I don't think it helps anyone grow. So it was a little bit of a bullpen. It was, this person's thriving. You're not, can you listen to him? And it just grew from there, really.
Everything's very much performance-led.
Yeah, and I think it should be. I think you make your own living on how good you are at something.
Do you think that comes from, like, the sport background?
Yeah.
The performance side of things? Because it's black and white, isn't it? You're exactly. Performing well or you're not. Like, there's no real in between. You can be an average, but it's, like you said, it's you participate in. If that's not what you want, then
yeah, I think it's. I don't know the exact numbers, but I know a ridiculous amount of PE teachers go on to become head teachers. I think it's like the highest.
That's funny you say that. When I think back to high school, I went to Waytheken in Widnes, and at the time, if I think, but I'm not 100% sure like, right now, but I know like maybe 5-6 years after we'd left, all the PE staff. Pretty much all the ones that were I was a rugby lad, so we just got on well with the PE staff. It was just natural, and all of them then within a couple of years of us leaving became the head teacher of the school. Another one became like head of department. Another one became another head of department. One of them left and became a head teacher in another school. So it's funny you say that. I've always thought, I've always wondered what it is, but I've never heard anyone else talk about it.
Used to managing a team, being in a team, winning, losing, making decisions. It's
like a strategy side of things.
Yeah, they're all traits that go into business, aren't they, really? So I think I've benefited from that, and all your teachers did by the sounds of it.
No, definitely. They were always really good. Like, it was, when you have them teachers and you look back when you're in school and you could have a laugh with them, but you knew where the line was. Yeah. That for me is most PE teachers were like that. And
there's so many good teachers, and I probably had loads of good teachers. I went to Crocky Comp, not a good school, and that's why it doesn't exist anymore. But I probably had some good teachers that just couldn't manage behaviour. Yeah. And if you can't get past that first stage, you've got no chance to teach.
Yeah. I've always, like, from the start, I've always wanted to build a team. But before, obviously starting this business, I'd always worked in really, like, nice environments. I've always been really lucky with jobs and stuff, and culture has always been a big thing. Always played rugby, always been a big sort of advocate for, like, the dressing room, the changing room culture type thing. And that's something me and Liam have always spoke about. He's similar background to me. So when it comes to running a small team, like you mentioned it before about like bad hires, for example, when they quickly become like a bit of a sour apple, don't they, in small environments. But I've always talked about how there's so much parallel between sport and business. And it's basically what you've just said there. I think culture is a huge thing.
It massively is. I'm not saying my way of doing it's the best, because sometimes I will just say, I need to let you go. I'm really sorry. Here's your letter. Whereas it might be that you could work with them and train them. But I generally think it's not like, we've had good teachers who just aren't good workers, say that. And they just don't want to work hard. They just want to teach and go home. Yeah. Whereas I'd rather have someone who's really committed to a cause. Yeah. Maybe they're not the best teacher, but they can develop. Yeah. I think it's all about them personal traits I'd rather find.
Looking at potential. Yeah. Again, you can definitely link that back to sport, can't you?
Yeah, well, a guy that works with me now, I think he's 30 now, joined me when he was 18, been with me for 12 years through various businesses. He's probably one of my best mates. I class him as a friend before, an employee now, and he's just grown massively to the point where he's better than me at nearly all aspects of my business that I run. And I think that's what you should be trying to do, is get staff who are better than you at many things.
Definitely agree with that. I think it took me a while, to be honest, to get a hold of that, really, when the idea of like, especially in a business like this, like it might be similar to when you were running your business and you were also coaching as well, and you sort of, you are the business, so you're the one that's building the business, and you're also doing the selling, you're doing the marketing, but you're also doing the coaching, and you're building the relationships, and you're good at all them things, or else that's the reason why the business exists in the first place. And I feel like it took me a couple of years to realise that actually you do want people that are better at all these things than you, because together you're essentially stronger together, aren't you? And I think when I got to a point where it was like, that started happening. Like, for example, like Joe, you met before, Jay's not in. Like, from a creative standpoint, I was always the one that did the creative and the web and the marketing. That's quite uncommon. You don't really get, it's like one person does each. And I wouldn't even look at anything creative now. I love branding, and I'll still do the work if I need to do it, but I would just give it straight to them because I know that they're the best person for the job. I feel like as a business owner, that's like a real sort of, I don't know what the word is, but you feel very proud to be in that and privileged to be in that position.
Oh, massively. For me now, my existing business that I run is called the HE Academy. We deliver sports degrees for Loughborough. I've got 3 staff in my quality team. They're all better than me in education, all of them. And we have meetings, and I'm like, are we okay? And they go, yeah. And I go, I trust you.
And that's it.
Literally. So shout out to them 3 were absolutely brilliant. Yeah. And I think you've got to get comfortable with hiring people like that. And if you pay them well, and if you look after them, then you've got nothing to worry about.
I think that's sort of, again, when you come to hiring, and you'll know this better than me probably, but when you always have a sort of decision to make, don't you? You sort of have like a role that you need to fill, and then you look at it and you go, there's always 2 routes you can go down, multiple routes, but 2 main routes. So you can go training and education heavy, where you would get someone cheaper and maybe younger, and then you would train them up and give them the time to be at the stage that you want them at, or you go straight in at the deep end and you pay the money for the person that's done all that work already. I feel like that's always been a hard decision for business owners to make as well.
I think I work better with younger people with potential, but now the business I've got now needs high quality staff who've already got experience.
Both, essentially.
I used to look at things of what's the least I can pay, but now it's the other way around. So what's the most I can afford to pay, and if I can afford to pay it, I will. Because you get what you pay for, ultimately.
But then when you compile all them lessons that you've had over the years, then as long as you've got the strategy and the foundation to then understand how you get a return on that, then that's where
exactly. So I do my business plan, look at my forecasting. Okay, that means there's this budget for the staff. Yeah. Why would I hold it back from them? Because the more they get paid, the happier they are. All of my staff, don't say they laugh at me, they're probably quite happy. I've got an unlimited holiday policy. Your staff are probably, I don't know if you do
the same thing. Yeah,
and it came because I couldn't be bothered managing holidays, staff's holidays. So, you've got 1 day left, you've got 2. I'm not bothered. If the job's done and we're all getting where we need to be, then take time off. I trust you. Yeah. I would say if someone takes 200 days off in the year, I'm probably going to let you go at the end of the year.
There's still a line.
Yeah. And it comes back to getting the right staff. I know the staff I've got wouldn't abuse that. Yeah. Because they want the business to do well.
Yeah. No, we do the same thing. And I think the way I've always sort of thought of it, and to be honest, like if Liam was here now, I could feel his eyes through that wall probably. A lot of the rules as such, or lack of rules that we've always had, has generally come from maybe some naivety at the start of business, but also a bit of laziness. Well, I don't actually want to do that. That sounds like really traditional business. I don't want to do that. So what we're going to do instead? But the way I've always thought of it is, obviously, when you get back from your staff, like the mentality that they apply to the business and when they're fulfilling their actual role, that line is always there, but they sort of have more control on where that line is. Like what you give in gives you the ability to get a bit more freedom maybe, or as long as the job gets done, as we always say. But I just feel like that just creates such a better culture and team environment. Like, again, going back to like the sport thing, like I've always said, rather than being like the manager, more the captain in the changing room, like that's generally the approach that I'd like to go for. Holidays is one. Have you got any more like that? Any more rules sort of like on the unlimited holidays? Anything like quirky that you might do, like a little bit different or a little bit against the grain?
No, I think it's more just we have regular meetings once a week if we can. I try and keep meetings as short as possible. Like sometimes I can be quite abrupt, where like just let me say this, take me through this as quickly as you can, because I just think like sometimes you can get bogged down in meetings and you have a meeting to prepare for the next meeting, and let's do some work, lads. Yeah. So we just try and be as quick as we can in meetings, look at everyone's tasks, and then go off we go. Let's all go and focus on our tasks. I just think you can procrastinate. Yeah, you can. I'd rather just get the job done. And it is like the speed of decision making ultimately that it comes down to, isn't it, when you're looking at growing a business? And again, I think that's where it comes back to the business college, that we don't have a board of governors, we don't have a hierarchy of staff. It's me, 4 staff underneath me at the moment, and we can make decisions like that. Yeah. If we think something's a good idea, we'll do it. If we want to change something, we can. So I like that environment. Yeah. And so going from when you did the JQ, what was it again? JQ Sport. Yeah, and then then rebranded. UK School Sport. Yeah. So what part of your life are we at now, timeline-wise? Still young, probably 21, 22. So you've done a lot in for like 4 years. Yeah, I was working for myself from a young age. I was on my UEFA course, met a couple of Man City coaches. They invited me into Man City, so I started working part-time for Man City. And the business was okay. I was probably making, between 20 and 30k a year, but I was doing what I loved, so it just felt amazing. And then I was getting my part-time wage from Man City, so I was doing okay. And then I got approached by a friend I played footy with, Gary Judge, really successful now. He runs probably the biggest sports provider in the country. He's managing director. He's gone on to achieve some really good stuff. He was working for a company called Coaching Connections, and he'd done such a good job that he got given 50% of the business. But it was probably at a bit of a lull, and they had education for sports at post-16, and I had all this primary school business. So he come to me and said, would you consider taking 25% of my business, but you've got to roll all of your business into mine? Right. And at the time, I was really apprehensive because I thought, I'm giving me business away. And fair play to him, he said, I'll tell you what, if you're not happy after a year, you can take everything back. So it was like a free hit, and I'm so glad he said that, because I went for it. I know he was speaking to several other primary school providers at the time who did what I did, and we just hit it off and we went for it. So we set about growing the business together. The students then got work placement in my primary schools. We started looking at going, okay, we've got a Liverpool site for education. Can we set one up in Wigan? Can we set one else somewhere else? And we were really lucky that our 50% after 1 year become 100%, because the business owner moved to America. Right. And they came to us and said, we'd like to sell you our 50%. And we got the best deal you could ever imagine. They said they wanted 10k. And we could pay that off as we went. So there was no money up front. So again, you couldn't really ask for anything better than that. No, it was so much luck involved. It's not like I sat down and went, I'm going to set up a sports college. It was Gary approached me. Then a year later, we got really lucky. Then we met a couple of staff who had their own ideas and areas. So we went from like 1 college site to 4 in a couple of years. And we grew so much in the college sector that we could eventually get rid of the sports stuff in the primary schools. Because even though it was great, it didn't really make as much money. So we grew that, Coaching Connections. I think I joined in 2013, and then we sold it in 2017. So it was a short journey, really, 4 years. I think we started with about 10, 15 students, and when I left, we had about 300, 350. Wow. Which again is not by no means the biggest. So did you sell that and move on, or did you sell your part to that business? So we sold 100% of the business. Yeah. Myself and my business partner Gary, we owned 50% each, and we sold it to one of our funders. Okay. So I don't know if you know how college education works, but there's people with government contracts and there's people without. We were without. Okay. So normally what you have to do is find a college with a contract who can't spend all of their funding. And we would say, well, we've got 100 students. If you fund us, you can take 20% and we'll help you fulfill your contract. Yeah. And that was really quite a booming business. But now I think colleges have started lobbying that they don't want people like us. Okay. Because we're essentially taking some of their students. So again, Liverpool Business College will open this year with 50 business students, that maybe would have went to Hugh Baird or City Liverpool College.
Yeah.
So they don't really like subcontractors. But this provider did. They were in growth mode. We were in growth mode. It was a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
And yeah, eventually we cashed out in 2017, which was quite an experience.
For me, when I said before about you listen to podcasts and you will hear lots of people talk about exiting businesses, then moving on and stuff, but you very rarely actually get a chance to speak to somebody who's done that. It doesn't matter on what level it's happened. It's a process that I think, from my perspective, I think everybody, unless you're trying to create like a family business and you maybe want to pass it down, everyone should surely be building a business to eventually exit at some point in whatever way. So when that first started coming around from you, the idea of exiting a business, what was running through your mind? How did that work for you?
So we had no plans to sell, absolutely none. We were loving growing the business. Myself and Gary were young enough to have enough energy to be pushing the business, and we probably grew to one of the maybe top 5 biggest sports providers for education in the country, and we had ambitions to be the biggest. Like, we didn't want to be held back, but the issue was the funding. If you don't have your own college funding, you're always beholden to other providers. And we had some providers that would ring us in June and go, just to let you know, we can't fund you next year. And that could be like a 500k contract. And you're like, well, now I've got to spend all summer ringing colleges to replace that. I don't know if I can replace it. I've already offered students and parents a place. It was a real precarious place to be in. So when it was called Access to Music, the college at the time, their owner wanted to meet myself and Gary and see what our plans were for the future. So we made this pack, and instead of branding it Coaching Connections, we branded it Access Sport, just because we thought it was it was a way to draw him in and go, look how much these align with what we do. And he absolutely loved it. He asked us what our goals were, what our ambitions were. Quite naively, I think I said something like, to not need to work anymore, or to have enough money to not work. And he went, that never happens. Like, it doesn't matter if you make 10 million, someone's got 100 million and you'll want to get to that stage. So, and
you'll probably always want to work to some point.
Yeah, otherwise
it's a passion project, maybe,
exactly.
Or something. But
so we started the conversation from there, and it was probably like a 2-year journey.
Really?
It was long, and a lot of solicitors and a lot of due diligence that wore us down. And we ummed and ahed. At one point we were selling it. Next minute we go, I don't want to sell it. Come on, let's kill the deal. But eventually we did sell it. We got all the due diligence done, and yeah, we agreed the price. What I'll find out is most people normally do earn-outs now. So if I wanted to buy your business, I'd come to you and say, okay, I can give you X amount, but that's if you hit this target over the next 2, 3, 5 years, whatever it is. They gave us a 1-year target, and it was, we'll give you this much up front, and if your company makes this much profit by the end of the year, this is the final sum that you get. And every pound you're off that target, a pound comes off the price.
So you essentially sell the business, work in the business to hit the target, and then... Literally,
yeah. So I spent a full year doing anything I could to make money. We were signing up learners up and down the country, traineeships, apprenticeships, study program learners. I was busy.
It's quite a cool concept though, isn't it? Because it sort of creates that team environment straight away, doesn't it? That sort of relationship between the two. So yeah, obviously you're selling the business to this person or corporation, but at the same time you're in it together for a little bit to make it work, to give everyone what they want.
Everyone wins.
Yeah.
So I think our target was like 300k profit, EBITDA. And if I hit that target, that was their 300k that they were just giving back to me. So that was coming off the purchase price. So I was guaranteed my money, but I just earned them a load of money. Yeah. And because I got it to a 300k profit business, next year was probably going to be the same. So essentially the business paid for itself.
Yeah.
So it was easy for them. It was a no-brainer. But we got that lump sum, that coming from Norris Green, and I think Gary's from Walton.
Yeah.
You don't expect to see that sum of money enter your bank, and that's quite a surreal moment where they go, right, it's done now, you've signed the paper, we'll inform the solicitors to move the funds, and you go to the cash machine and the balance is a bit more than it was the previous day.
And are you allowed to go into the sum of what you got for the business?
Yeah.
So when you let's put a bit of context to it then. So you've obviously took it from zero, and you've worked. Well, initially it was yourself, wasn't it? And then you joined this business, and then you've grown the business. At what point, and when you had a year left, at what was you at then, profit wise? So if you had to get to that 300k, where was you roughly at?
Miles off it.
Miles.
Yeah, miles off it. College isn't. You don't go into college education to become a millionaire. I don't think. You love it, and if you make good money from it, great. That's a bonus. we agreed a sale price of 900,000 if we hit our target, the EBITDA target. I think they give us 100 each up front, and then we were on the hook for 350k each. I hope Gary doesn't mind me saying this.
Well, you can double check with
I'll check.
We can take it out if we need to.
And we did everything we could to hit that target, and I'll make no bones about it. Gary was the education expert. He was the one overseeing everything, the Ofsted visits, making sure we were compliant. I was more the one where I'll be a dog with a bone. There's these learners down south in London. I know we can make X amount from. I'll go and set it up. And he was good at that as well. And he's obviously good because he's took it to another level. But I think at that period, that's where I was at. I'd do anything to make a sale. So we got that sale, got the money up front, and then we had a year to hit the target. And fortunately, we did. And like I said, everyone won. And part of that deal was we got a salary. So we officially joined as employees. We were salaried, and I think I stayed for about 18 months after the sale.
Oh, really?
Not good.
Was that optional, or?
No, like I said, that was 2017, and Gary's still there 8 years later, so I could have done that.
Yeah.
But I'm not very good in a corporate environment.
Yeah.
Probably goes back to being unemployable. So
it'd be a bit of a weird situation, being unemployable, being employed by your own business that you've sold. It's a bit of a...
Yeah, and just when you start realising you're not making the decisions anymore.
Yeah. I can imagine that must be a really difficult scenario to be in.
We had one of the directors of the business. He was like assigned to look after us, and apparently he was meant to spend 2 days a week looking after us, mentoring us, and it just wasn't like that. We were sort of left to our own devices, but no longer had the power to make any decisions.
Yeah, and the freedom.
So we were sort of just in no man's land.
Yeah.
Gary can be quite political, and he's quite good in that environment, and a lot better than I am in that environment, and he's thriving now. Whereas I made the choice that I was going to look to leave when I could. But I had a 1 year non-compete. That's also part of when you sell a business. You have to sign a lot of NDAs and a lot of non-competes that can restrict your options.
And so what did, when you, like you mentioned before about checking that bank balance and it's higher than it was before, what was sort of going through your mind? So you've stayed on for longer there anyway, even though you got your money and technically you could maybe move on. What was life looking like? So how old were you then? 20?
What would it have been? 2017. So 30, 31.
30. So what was the idea of life? Was it kind of like, right, let's chill out a little bit and enjoy the money, or was it just what's the next?
I remember, like, my wife's off screen now. I remember speaking to my wife, and she wasn't saying like spend the money, but it was like, what are you going to do with the money? And I remember talking, saying I have to really look after this money, because yesterday I had a business that was worth 900k, you could say. That was cash flowing. Whereas now I've just got money in the bank that's doing nothing. So if I spend all this money, I've got no money and no business. Yeah. So the idea was I had to use that money to make sure I could still earn from it. We had some nice holidays. You pay a little bit off your mortgage.
Yeah, there's got to be some kind of quick win.
But there was nothing like, oh my God, we've got a Lamborghini all of a sudden. There was nothing like that. And I think you quickly realise, like, that might sound like a lot of money, and at that time it was life-changing, but in the scheme of things, it's not.
If you don't sort of, at that age, because you're pretty young.
Yeah, I've still got 30 odd years to work, and you're not going to retire on that. No. So it was just okay, keep working, keep building, and see where we can go from there.
One thing that sort of popped into mind when because obviously this is a completely new space to me, so I'm looking at like a college from, I guess for me, like from a student perspective of the colleges I went to Liverpool College as part of an apprenticeship. So I'm looking at it from the view that I've had, and then I'm looking at it from the other side of the table now, where you've been there, like, this private scenario. How does money play into that? So if you're working in education, is there any kind of, like, not animosity is not the right word, but when you are seen to be benefiting financially from education, is there anything around that like you maybe have to become a little bit more private because you don't want to, like, seem flashy, especially when you sold the business as well and you got that extra money? Is there anything around that, anything that you sort of look at now and think, right, well, I'm in front of students a lot, and I'm speaking to, like, families and stuff. Would you generally guard your life off a little bit in case you'd be seen to be a certain way?
I think some people could view it that way because, like you said, it's education, and the funding you get should ultimately be spent on the student's education.
Yeah.
See, I've never paid myself like a ridiculous wage or not. I earn enough to have a good lifestyle, and the money that I did get, I've used for investments, and that's helped me, get cash flow and get income. So it's not like I'm sitting here going, I earn so much money.
Yeah.
I don't. But I've been able to use my money quite wisely. Yeah. So I think the way it works is, it used to be about £4,000 a student that a college would get. Now it's way more than that. I think it can be like 4-6, and there's deprivation uplift. So if you have a student from a deprived area, they're worth more. If they have to study maths and English, they're worth more. So I think in London, some learners can be worth like £6,000-7,000. And if they've got an EHCP plan, they can be worth up to like £40,000-50,000.
Really?
So there's a lot of money in education. But like you said, it's probably frowned upon if you're pocketing all that money, and there's people who've gone to jail for wrongly using government funds.
There was actually, I did my apprenticeship, so I'm 28 now. When did I do my apprenticeship? When I was 17, 11 years ago. And I did it with a company called, it was like AAA or something.
They've gone bust, haven't they?
Yeah, Liverpool. And it was all right. And then I went to City Liverpool College in West Derby for, I think it's West Derby-ish, for the college and stuff like that. And then I think maybe like 2 years later, another friend went. And then I started, the business I worked for before this, I took on an apprentice then in like marketing, which was quite good. I was only about a couple of years old then, but I took him on, and I told him to go and do the same course. We went and did the same course, and about 6 months in, they went bust. And I believe what I heard was that they were essentially taking funding for students that weren't actually signed up or something like that. I don't know.
There's a lot of bad actors in the space, which is probably why they've gone away from subcontracting. Because you would assume you can trust City Liverpool, you can assume you can trust Hubert. But a lot of these training providers could be run by private businessmen. Yeah. And the way education works, you could be delivering a course for a year before anyone really starts looking at what you're doing. So you could have had a year's worth of funding. Yeah. And then when they come out to check and go, actually, these learners don't exist, or that's not being done, you get closed down, but you've had the money. Yeah. You're not giving it back. But some people have gone to jail because they've really abused the system. Yeah. I think there's been plenty of years where City and Liverpool College have lost money, and some big colleges up and down the country have not gone bankrupt because they're not allowed to go bankrupt, but they've spent and gone into debt. Yeah. And then the government gives them more money, which is quite an unfair playing field, because if I go into debt and spend more than I've got, I go out of business. Yeah. Whereas a big college goes, oh, slap on the wrist, there's some more money, don't do it again, please. Yeah. So it's really not a fair playing field, because they can outspend me, they can make sure they can have massive facilities, and we've got to run it like a real business. Yeah. But I'm looking at that as a positive, because I can sit with my students and show, well, this is what we do as a business. Look, these are the decisions after me.
You sat in a real life example right now.
Literally. Yeah. So I look at it as a positive, but it probably is a negative.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's sort of like the way I'll need to come have a look around and stuff and meet students. It'd be brilliant. But the way I'm sort of seeing it now is almost like with our team there. And obviously they're not necessarily, they're doing work for me, but it's like me coming in and training them, and they get a qualification at the end of it. It's essentially what you're doing. Obviously you've got a team around it, but
so
you get the qualification.
Our students have got a choice to go into A-levels, to do an apprenticeship, to come to us and do a BTEC, and they're free to make that choice. They should be given the career advice and guidance to make the correct choice. Yeah. And whether it is a sales tactic for me to say, go and look elsewhere, but I'm confident in my product.
Yeah. You're confident they're going to go and have a look at that and they go, well, I know where I need to go.
And if they do choose that, then perfect. I've now made sure I didn't take a student who wasn't sure. So
that's kind of just a normal customer acquisition strategy, really, isn't it? Like we would do the same, where you maybe if someone's a bit on the fence a little bit and you need them to be 100% committed for you to work well with them, you let them go and explore, and then if they don't sign up, then maybe it was the right choice for everyone anyway.
Everyone wins, I think. So there's no issue with that. We by no means operate like the car salesman tactic. It's not, I'm selling you this car today. It's not like that.
That's why I find it so interesting, I think, because it's such a fusion of business and education and college. It's just mind blowing, honestly. I hadn't known any of this existed before. Obviously, I came across the podcast on socials. That's how I kind of heard of you in the first place, and then we was chatting a little bit back and forth, wasn't we? And then I kept seeing these episodes roll out. I was thinking, I don't think I'd be able to keep up with the volume of that.
That's tough, and I think people don't understand the cost. And you've got all these lights and the cameras and the mics.
That's not mine.
It costs a lot of money and time, doesn't it? And like the editing afterwards, I'm sure that's. Well, I do them. I help make my clips and work with someone. So fair play to you for starting the long and painful journey.
I think in the space that we're in, because obviously we cover so many different aspects of creative and tech and stuff, we're sort of running something that we sort of do ourselves anyway, if that makes sense. So we already have like Ryan's editing for clients right there right now. So having him to edit some extra clips is fine. Obviously having Passion next door is brilliant. But it's all kind of what you enjoy. Like I've been on that route as a business owner where you sort of peak and trough in like how much delivery you might be stuck into, and then you sort of get that freedom back as a business owner, and then you start going, right, I need to try and pull my finger out here, and everyone's kind of out working me or whatever. And then I've just tried to find what my passion is. My passion is generally like storytelling and branding, and that's what I love. So that's kind of where the podcast comes into it for me. Which is,
glad to be on and tell my story.
I know, definitely. That's what we said before, like to have somebody that uses a podcast as their like main channel to push out, to have them as a guest on a podcast is always an interesting thing. How you found it being on the other? Is this the first podcast you've done other than your own?
Yeah. The plan is to do more, but this is the first one.
Maybe this is the first one that people will start. Okay, I look at the notes, and I do want to try and not go over 60 minutes, even though I know we easily could. So obviously, we just going back to the timeline. We're at the point there where you sold your business, and then you sort of looking at the next steps. You had, some benefits of the money. You paid some mortgage off and had some holidays and stuff. When does the Liverpool Business College come into it?
So after that, like I said, left after about 18 months, had a 1 year non-compete. So I had a year out, then started my second sports provider. Completely different business model. I won't go into that now, but people can reach out, and I'm happy to share whatever information they need. And that was really profitable. We had a combination of college education and degree education. We eventually sold the college education, again, for several hundred thousand with another business partner. And then I approached that business partner because we kept the degree business. And I said, I'd like to buy you out of this. I'd really like to grow it. And at the time, I think we had 50 degree students. And I've still owned that business 100%. Come September this year, we're going to have nearly 200 degree students on that business. So again, it's something I've grown.
Yeah.
It's over £1 million turnover. It's a profitable business. HE is a lot more profitable than college education, thankfully. And then my son wanted to study business. He left school last year. So we did the parent thing. We went to all the colleges, looked at their offering for business, and there was nothing that inspiring. It was all like college building. You're going to come into college. You're going to learn the theory of business. Yeah. There was no business owners there to tell us about you can do this, that you're going to learn these tricks or these skills. And I remember leaving the meeting and ringing my wife saying, I think I could do a better job. She was like, what do you mean? Just laughed at it, went home, did some research. And
is this the kind of scenario that you're used to, by the way? Go and just get some wacky idea and then actually doing it?
No, we do come up with some random ideas, and my wife as well. She's a photographer, and we've started our own. We bought a 1966 camper van and turned it into a photo booth for weddings and stuff like that. So we do try our hand at stuff. I had one business that lost a setup and lost 50k on it. It was meant to be an estate agency business. So again, I won't go into that, but I've had a lot of things that haven't gone well to get to the point where things are going well. We decided, we thought we could do a better job. I looked at what the curriculum would look like, what I wanted to achieve. And my whole aim with the college is to take the students out of the college building. I think you learn so much more in the real world. So if someone wants to get into videography or content production, we want our students working in passion rather than sitting in the college. Yeah. If someone wants to get into media and managing clients' accounts and branding, I want them coming here to your business. Yeah. Because they're going to learn so much more than I'll ever teach them. Yeah. We'll give them a good underpinning, knowledge, theory, some personal skills. Yeah. I always say to our students, when you go in, ask yourself, are you adding value? And if you're not, what can you do? Maybe sit down with the business and say, Callum, I want to be more productive. What can I do to help? Yeah. I think little tricks like that go a long way, rather than just sitting there and waiting to be told what to do. Yeah. The idea came about. That property business, again, was an experience because I had cash in the bank. I put 50k in. I had no experience of being an estate agent. I just liked property. I hired someone. I didn't know what I was doing, and that money just evaporated. I quickly realised, okay, stick to what you like, stick to what you know. So when we set this business up, we raised funds. We got 4 investors from Liverpool, all business owners, normal people. 4 of them put 20k each in, so I had 80k, and that gave us runway for a year. And I actually found I've managed that money way better than I managed my own 50k. Right. Because I don't want to lose anyone else's money. Whereas when it was my own 50k, not that I was like being loose with it, but it was like, well, if I lose, I'm only like responsible to myself. Yeah. Whereas this, I've watched every penny. I've tried to manage it as best as I can. And it had to be a success because I couldn't walk around town and bump into someone who's given me 20k for the business that's failed.
Yeah,
so
there's that certain kick up the arse a little bit.
100%. It drove me on and it's worked.
Yeah.
One of the investors, Paul, you probably laugh, he said they'd be lucky if we get 10 students and we could take hundreds if we wanted.
And that's my question. So you said it's been a success. You're obviously in that first year sort of window. What does that mean to you? So at the start, what was a success in the first 12 months?
My goal was always 50 students starting in September. So I wanted a year to take on a venue, make the venue how we wanted it to look. It's an office space. It's in the business district of town. We don't want it to feel like a college, and we definitely don't want it to feel like school.
It definitely doesn't look like college on like the
No.
pictures. Have you been taking the pictures?
Yeah, my wife does the content.
Yeah, I like a brick wall. The brick wall is what stands out to me, I think.
So yeah, we wanted to make sure that we felt like a different environment.
Yeah.
And the students come in, the parents come in and go, I like it. I like how it feels. Our open evenings, we invited business owners to it. So the students could come in and speak to business owners rather than just me giving a sales pitch.
Yeah.
That's okay. Well, if you're interested in videography, go and speak to Passion who are in the corner over there.
Yeah.
And they would say, well, this is the career path. And it was just an honest approach.
Yeah.
I don't think
It's
you
just,
can beat honesty.
It just seems to be what should be happening anyway, but it's not.
Literally, and we have to deliver tutorials, and I don't know how old you are now, but you probably remember back to school and you'd do like PSHE or personal development, and the teaching things like, this doesn't matter to me. Like I know a lot of our students now have to learn what's anti-vaping.
Yeah.
Surely we can trust them. Like, we don't need to, where we teach you out what are interest rates, what does a mortgage mean, what does your social media profile say about you, actual personal skills that they can use in their life. So yeah, 50 students was the goal. Like I said, we've had hundreds of applications. We could take way over 100 if we wanted, but we're sticking to the mission of 50.
Yeah.
And then we know we can give them a really good experience and hopefully produce the next business owners and entrepreneurs in the city.
I think 21-year-old you would have gone and took the 100, 200 straight away now.
Yeah. If I knew there was 200 students that were worth X amount, I'd have took them all.
Yeah.
But it probably would have failed a year later. Whereas in a bit longer in the tooth now, I think 50 is good. We can pay the bills and we can give a really good experience. And you talk about before saying people look to exit the business. My pitch to the investors was, I never want to sell this college, which again was quite honest of me, but they were thinking, how do I get my money back?
Yeah.
But I think they've bought into the project of going, well, let's do some good. We've got some money. We have a good business ourselves. Let's really give back to the youth. And
the expectations are set, and that's the mission, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. To the point where we needed a little bit of extra money to get through this year, and everyone just put in.
Yeah.
No one grumbled about it. They went, "Yeah, great, let's do it." We know we're still doing something good. So that's where we're up to at the minute. Stay tuned because there's probably going to be various other colleges popping up over the country. Manchester Business College, Birmingham Business College. So it is it's going to be a lifelong journey for me now, and I don't plan to ever sell it, and the plan is to grow it.
Maybe we should use this as a documentary. I think every time you open a new, or hit a milestone, or go into a new city, we'll do another episode, and then you can talk about that one, and we can document it.
What happens if I open 10 in a year?
I'm going to owe Passion a lot of money. But I mean, we've just got to the business college now, and I feel like we could talk about it all day, but I'm going to do it myself, but if people want to hear the rest of the story or what they can expect, where should they go? So
liverpoolbusinesscollege.com. It's got our website, got all the information on there. Students can apply on there. There's an apply page.
I had a look at that yesterday.
Yeah. And again, we wanted to, Brandon, we wanted to lean into the city as much as possible. So the Liver buildings all over it.
Yeah.
The logo's got the Liver birds in it. We wanted to make sure that people recognised the city.
Yeah.
Because no one had heard of Liverpool Business College 10 months ago. But when we were meeting people, like, oh yeah, I know yous.
Yeah.
And I felt like saying you don't. But we've tried to engineer it so
it
you
just
think
feels familiar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It goes back to why did Rolex pay Roger Federer to wear the watch? Because people recognise Roger Federer. You lean into
it's an authority piece, isn't it?
Exactly. So yeah, we've tried to brand it as much around the city as we can, right down to everything's blue themed, and even our coffee mugs are blue.
Yeah.
We wanted it to be themed as well as we could. So yeah, liverpoolbusinesscollege.com, Instagram at Liverpool Business College. We're on TikTok, we're on YouTube, all the media channels. I don't manage any of them because I've got no skills in that area. But there's my wife and there's other people who are much better than me who do those type of things.
it's crazy when you just sign up there. When we've talked about earlier on in the journey, and then we've talked about the latest ventures. I know there's other stuff that you've not talked about, but the business college in particular, the thread of the lessons is through everything. So the lessons and the mistakes you mentioned making at the start, you've naturally just come and talked about how you're doing them better now.
Yeah.
Which is it's the whole point of business, isn't it?
Yeah,
learning.
Continuous improvement, and it goes hand in hand with education. So I'd like to think I've took all of those skills along the way, and this business has seemed really seamless. Like, we haven't really hit any roadblocks yet, which we will. Some probably big ones. But yeah, that experience has helped massively.
Incredible. Well, thanks for sharing. I'm glad we were the first one as well. Let's get this podcast out before you go into any others, and we can be the first.
Perfect.
But for anybody that's obviously, you can see me now if you're watching, but if you're listening, make sure you go ahead to all the links that you just mentioned them, because it's cool. It is really cool what's going on, and I'm interested to get stuck in myself and have a look. And if you need anything from us from a business perspective, then we'd definitely be in there as well. So make sure you go and have a look. Make sure you obviously liking, subscribing, all that stuff on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. And stay tuned for the next episode. So that concludes this episode with James from Liverpool Business College, and as you've probably seen already, a lot of other businesses as well. If I was to summarise what I wanted to take away and what I feel like we got from James in this episode is how crazy that you'll learn along the way. Eventually, if you learn from them, consolidated into being really valuable, and sometimes the foundation of why you become successful in the future. You look at James, he's 38, starting a whole new business in Liverpool, one that he's had to acquire funding for, and he could have quite easily probably just chilled out for a little bit, and he didn't, and that's the entrepreneur in him. So if you've watched and listened, make sure that you go and have a look at the Liverpool Business College. I've got a feeling they're going to be doing something really exciting over the next couple of years around the city, and it sounds like around other cities as well. So make sure you stay tuned in.